I've been wanting to do a patchwork pumpkin, and I thought, what better way to use your scraps of wool than to create this lovely pumpkin from all of those little pieces. Now, they're about 1.5 inches square, roughly. I've laid them all out, all the colours that I had, in a slightly complementary colourway. I've got a foam mat with a wool topper. I'm using my 38 star felting needles and this lovely punch tool, which is going to speed up the process so much more than a single felting needle would. However, because it doesn't need to be super firmly felted, just using a single needle is fine. I've got 2 needles here taped together. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that those overlapped edges for each different piece are just slightly connected. So I'm just slightly felting in the edges of each piece. I'm not flattening everything down. I'm just really connecting them, just tangling in a few fibres. Doesn't take long at all. But what I would say is try and keep it as a square because it's easier to wrap around the pumpkin if it's a square rather than a rectangle or some other kind of shape. So just keep working that. The 38 needle is absolutely fine. It's a good all-rounder and perfect for this kind of project. But I love the punch tool because it's so fast. It just speeds everything up. I've got six needles, felting needles in this one. It takes 7. I could have put 7 in and it would have worked absolutely fine. But this one's got 6 in because it's, quite thin. The wool layers are quite thin. It actually works really well with quite a lot of needles in without too much resistance at all. And then I'm just going to carefully roll that back from the mat, turn it over and do the same. And just keep continuing with that method until everything's nicely felted together. The most important thing is that all those squares are connected to each other rather than getting a really flat felting surface. So I'm going back around with the needle again, as you can see, just to make sure those squares are connected, flipping it over again to the front side and repeating the procedure. And you can just do this a couple more times if you want, but I felt that was enough. I think I'd done three full felts in total. So the front, the back, and then the front again. And now I'm going to create that patchwork quilt look. And I'm just going to use some wool tops that are in a complementary colour. You could use carded wool, but I like the wool tops because it enables you to stretch them and pull it down the felt without it actually breaking and creates a really nice straight line. And all I'm doing is laying it down where those small sections of wool interconnect. So when we've finished, we'll end up with a series of lines down and across and round the actual patchwork pattern to create that lovely patchwork quilt look. I got the idea from the Wishing Shed, Rachel at the Wishing Shed. When I interviewed her, she made this lovely patchwork quilt for one of her cute little mice. And I thought, I wonder if that would work for a pumpkin. So I thought I'd give it a go. So as you can see here, just keep working with those lines, just gently felting them down, not too much, don't need to be overworked. It's just a case of getting it to hold. And then if you've got any gaps, you can just patch those up. At the side here, I was quite a bit missing for this side patch, and I couldn't get the wool top that I was pulling down in the straight line to actually sit on it and connect. So just add some more wool. It's really laid back, easy project, no stress at all. Just whatever you've got lying around, it's fine to use. It's a great way to use up wool. You can use wool tops, carded wool, whatever you've got. Just use up all those little scraps because we've always got bags full of little scraps, and this is where they come in really useful, as well as using them to create a core as well if you wanted to. If you've got a big project, you can use them as the core. And now just pull up the felting from the mat carefully. It shouldn't be overly stuck to the mat anyway, and you've got a topper, and just check that everything's connected and give it one final go over with your needle or your punch tool. And then we're going to grab some core wool. This is a loose core wool, and I'm just gathering it into a ball and gently felting. It's really hardly felted at all because we're going to create the shape when we wrap that little wool patchwork blanket around it. This core wool is just a mixture of all sorts that I got from World of Wool. You can get core wool from most online needle felting places, but this is really good for soft core needle felting projects like the pumpkins, soft mushrooms, or fairy house bases, anything that's soft, snowmen. It's a brilliant core wool, and it also wraps really tightly if you want it to, if you've got quite a big body to make. It's really good for that, and it's super cheap. So definitely worth having some of this in your wool stash. Just keep drawing in that wool with your needle, pulling in with your fingers. It'll end up like a sort of farmhouse loaf size, and then you pop that reverse side up on top of your patchwork blanket, and you pull one corner in and just felt it gently into the middle of that until it holds. And then you do the same with the other side. So all four sides, bring them in, felt in the center till it holds, and then just keep working around, and then lift up any corners. You want it to end up looking like a pillow, like a round pillow. So keep working, lifting up any bits that are sticking out until you're happy with the shape. Just keep lifting and felting, and make sure you pull it in so it's nice and secure. You want to pull in that wool so it's quite tight, but that tightness is created by pulling in that patchwork quilt that you have created. Once you've done that, turn it back over and just check for any lumps and bumps that are sticking out that you've missed, and just gently poke with the needle until they all look kind of the same, really. As you can see here, we've got some bits sticking out, and you're just getting rid of the air really with your needle. So keep working round and make sure that is a really nice round shape ready for you to create those lovely sections for the pumpkin. And once you're happy with the shape, we're ready to start creating those segments. So again, using the same wool top that we did to create those patchwork pieces, wrap it round from the front, pull it in tightly so it squeezes the shape in, and then just felt on the underside in the middle. So everything is going to the underside of the pumpkin, the bit that isn't going to be seen. Just pull it round and felt it in, and continue to do that until you've got those 8 segments. Really simple, doesn't take long at all. And then once you've got those 8 segments, just check the shape again, make sure that if there's any lumps and bumps, you felt into those as well. Give it a good squish with your hands, and if it's flattened at all, that will help to plump it up. And then where all those wool tops meet in the middle, where we've done those crisscrosses, then felt that in with the needle to secure, and then lay a strip of wool top or carded wool on the top, because these are going to create some really lovely details and a really nice place to pop our stalk, which we're going to make in a moment. So just keep felting until those loose wool tops are nice and gently felted in. For the stalk, I'm using some really nice blended carded wool slither or long lengths, and I'm going to wrap around the barbecue skewer. As you know, one of my favorite methods for creating these rod shapes, one of the core shapes that are essential to needle felting projects. You use these to make legs, stalks, all sorts of things. So I'm just wrapping it around, keeping it tight, keeping the air out of it, and then just gently felting every now and then. But the important thing is not to let it get too long. Keep the air out and work in a diagonal angle. This is about 2 inches long maximum, this stem. So I'm just felting till everything's nice and secure, and then I'm wrapping around again. And then what I'm doing is I'm actually building up the tip of the stem, because the tip of the stem is going to be wider. So if you just build that up, wrap more wool around that, felt it in, and then flatten the end of the stem as well. So go straight in with your needle and just flatten that top. You want a nice flat top. And if it's a little bit short, or you want to just smooth it slightly, you can roll it in your hands. It's a really good technique. And then just keep felting that till it's nice and firm, and then you will be ready to remove that from the barbecue skewer and attach it to the pumpkin. So before you do that, I forgot to mention, we leave the ends of one end nice and loose, because these will attach to the pumpkin. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. You can still make it work, but it just makes life a bit easier if you leave one end loose. And then attach that loose end to the center of that pumpkin with those wool tops sticking out of the side. We're going to use those for details in a minute. And once that's nice and secure, we are then going to arrange those wool tops that we added. We're going to separate them, split them into thin strands, and then I like just to give them a twizzle or a twist. It just mats them together and just makes them look more decorative. And you can add whatever embellishments you want to this. I've got some wool yarn that I'm going to add. So wool yarn is really good to use. And what you can do is you can separate all the little pieces of the wool yarn. So if it's 2-ply yarn, you can just separate that and it leaves a nice twisty yarn, and you can attach that and add it to the pumpkin for extra embellishment. You can add beads, you can add silk fibres, all sorts of different things. But I really like using this wool yarn. It just pulls apart quite easily. And once you've done that, you just fold it in half or just felt in the centre of that piece of wool yarn, and then just add a few around the top of the pumpkin. These are quite complementary colours, but if you wanted to go with something that had more contrast, you wanted to add a flash of that blue turquoise that we've got there. And of course, you can't go wrong with the natural wool curls, which always look gorgeous sat on top of a pumpkin. So once you've added your embellishments, just check the shape again, give it a nice plump up, give it a good squish so it hasn't flattened, and just make sure everything is sitting as you want. If there's any lumps and bumps that you notice, felt those in, just gently with the needle, just get rid of that air until it's a really nice shape all the way around. And then that's it really. There is your patchwork pumpkin ready for you to display.